Have you ever really thought about what's flowing through your veins? I mean, it's not just red stuff, right? It's a whole bustling, invisible workforce of proteins. And today, we're going to take a deep dive inside your bloodstream to meet this amazing crew that keeps you running every single second of the day. Let's dive in. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll get to know the river that all these proteins call home. Then we'll do a proper meet and greet with the main workforce, the manager, the defenders, and the emergency first responders. And finally, we'll see how this whole incredible support system works together as one big team. All right, let's kick things off with the environment where all this action happens, what I like to call the river inside you. We're about to uncover the fluid that, and this might surprise you, actually makes up the majority of your blood. And that fluid is called blood plasma. You know, it's basically the liquid foundation of your blood. It's the matrix that holds everything together, all your blood cells, and, the reason we're here today, all those incredibly vital proteins. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Over half, a full 55% of what you probably just call blood is actually this yellowish fluid, plasma. All the famous parts, the red cells, white cells, platelets, they're all packed into that other 45%. But check this out. When we zoom into the plasma itself, it gets even cooler. Yeah, it's mostly water, about 92%, but look at that little 7% slice. That tiny fraction, that's where all the magic happens. It is absolutely jam-packed with a powerful, super dynamic workforce of proteins. So that really begs the question, right? What in the world is this tiny but mighty protein workforce actually doing in there? Well, it's time to meet the key players. Okay, time for the official introductions. Let's meet this protein workforce. We're going to break it down into the three main groups that are working tirelessly behind the scenes to keep your entire body in perfect balance. And this table gives us a fantastic snapshot of the team. First up, you've got albumin, who we can call the manager, making up the huge majority. Then we have the globulins, our defenders and carriers. And finally, fibrinogen, the essential first responder. So let's start with the undisputed boss of the group, albumin, the pressure manager. It's the most abundant protein in your plasma, and honestly, its job is just absolutely critical. I mean, just let that number sink in for a second. A staggering 60% of all the protein in your plasma is albumin. That sheer volume alone tells you how incredibly important it is. If this workforce were a company, albumin would be the entire management floor. And its job is twofold. First, it's the master of pressure. Think of it like a sponge that keeps the perfect amount of water inside your blood vessels so they don't leak fluid into your tissues. This is what maintains your blood pressure. So no albumin, you get swelling. Simple as that. Second, it's a transport vehicle, a microscopic taxi service, carrying around things like hormones and fatty acids that can't travel through the watery plasma all by themselves. And where does this superstar protein come from? Well, the production factory is your liver. It's just tirelessly churning out albumin to keep this whole system running like a well-oiled machine. All right, next up in our workforce, the globulins. If albumin is the manager, think of these guys as the versatile carriers and defenders. They're both your security detail and your specialized delivery service. Now, globulins kind of come in two main flavors. First, you have the alpha and beta globulins. Just like albumin, they're made in the liver and they act as taxis, moving important stuff like iron and vitamins around. Then you've got the more famous ones, the gamma globulins. You probably know them by their other name, antibodies. These are totally different. They're made by your immune system, and they're your body's frontline soldiers against any and all invaders. And that brings us to our third key player, fibrinogen, the first responder. This is your body's dedicated, on-call emergency repair crew. Now, it might be the smallest of the big three, making up only about 7% of the protein content, but don't let that number fool you. Its function is absolutely non-negotiable for your survival. So its crucial role is in blood clotting. Picture this, you get a cut. Immediately, fibrinogen, which is also made in the liver by the way, springs into action. It gets converted into the stuff called fibrin, which forms a sticky, mesh-like net. This net traps blood cells, forms a clot, and plugs the leak. It's the entire reason a simple paper cut is in a huge medical emergency. Okay, so let's zoom back out and look at the whole team again. In this unseen support system, you can really start to appreciate how albumin, the globulins, and fibrinogen all work together in this perfect, beautiful harmony. And this chart just lays it all out so perfectly, doesn't it? You can see the sheer dominance of albumin, our manager, the really substantial presence of the globulins, our carriers and defenders, and then that small but mighty bar for fibrinogen, the first responder. Together, they form this perfectly balanced, absolutely essential team.
And we can't forget about that final 1% of other solutes. This little category includes all the regulatory proteins, those critical messengers like enzymes and hormones. They may be tiny in number, but they are so mighty in function, basically acting as the directors and coordinators for countless processes all throughout your body. You know, this quote just says it all. Right now, as you're listening to this, that incredible complex workforce is operating inside of you, silently, constantly, managing, defending, and repairing, all to maintain the delicate balance that we call life. And that just leaves us with a final thought. We've only just peeked at one of these incredible unseen systems. What other amazing mechanisms are at work inside you right this second, performing countless tiny miracles just to keep you going? Pretty amazing to think about. Thanks for joining me for this one.